Welcome, everyone, to Core Values, an official podcast of Broken Arrow Public Schools on the Arrow Vision Network. I'm your host, Adam J. Foreman, Executive Director of Public Relations for Broken Arrow Schools, and this is made possible by our wonderful One Club sponsors, First National Bank of Broken Arrow, TTCU Federal Credit Union, Ascension St. John Broken Arrow, and the Tulsa Bone and Joint, and the Arrow Group. And let's welcome our special guest today, Superintendent of Schools, Chuck Perry. Welcome, Chuck Perry.
Thank you. Excited to be here. And
yes.
I do appreciate those sponsors. You calling their names out. They do so much for Broken Arrow Schools. So
I don't think people realize kind of the impact that they have on our schools.
They do not, and they have been rock solid over the years, and their commitment is goes beyond even what we may have in a contract. It seems like they're always doing above and beyond even that at times. So we appreciate them.
Yes, we do. So we're going to talk about our year in review, basically, with the 2021, 2022. I forgot what year it was. I mean, it's for like the last 3 years, it's been 1 year. Just kind of what the year's been like as we're wrapping up. As of right now, as of today of doing this, we have 12 whole days left of the school year.
And that blows my mind. It just seems like it was January yesterday, and it has gone by quicker. This semester's gone by quicker than any that I've ever been a part of.
I agree. I totally agree.
I don't even know why. It just has.
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right.
So before we even get into that, and we've done this before, but for those viewers that have not listened, let's talk about your educational journey to today. And I mean, let's go all the way back.
Well, I always like to tell people I am a proud graduate of Broken Arrow Public Schools.
You're a lifer.
Went K through 12, Oak Crest Elementary, Sequoia Middle School, South Intermediate at that time, and then I was the first class to go through 2 years here at the current high school campus. My wife and I, she's a 87 grad also, and going back much further is my mom and dad were both 1950 grads of Broken Arrow Public Schools, and my brother in 70 and my sister in 75. So I grew up hearing about BA and hearing about old stories and just different parts of the campus that are no longer there at the high school, the old 3-story building that was on what we last knew as North, along with stories about certain individuals, Coach Ragsdale, of course, Joe Robinson coached my dad in football, and then he was the high school principal when I was here at the high school.
You don't hear that much these days. That's kind of a rarity. It's interesting.
It is. He was a very good man, and
he didn't drive a bus, did he? Too, because we had principals that drove buses in my old school.
I wouldn't be surprised if early on, they did that, and just stories about after World War II, we had seniors coming back that were 20, 21 years old, finishing up their high school career because they'd been off to war.
Interesting.
And, just a lot of cool things, and I just would be remiss without mentioning Dr. Oliver to be in this position today, and think of the impact he's had on not only the school district but the community of Broken Arrow, and just such a genuine person, and established BA as I feel like an educational destination for so many families, and really grew us through some tough times in the 80s when Broken Arrow was exploding population-wise without much money, and we didn't have much retail or industrial base to pull from tax dollar-wise, and we're a true bedroom community at that time of Tulsa. And for him to navigate all of that and put Broken Arrow on the map is very impressive, and I still try to stay in touch with him today and pull as much wisdom.
He's got a lot.
He does from him.
And he was your superintendent when you were a student, correct?
That is correct.
Well, that's a full circle moment right there.
It really is. And, I taught here. Also, I went on to TU and played college soccer there. That was kind of my draw of going there. So I've never been too far away from home. And
there's nothing wrong with that at all.
There's not. I'm proud of it. And came back to Haskell Middle School at that time, which is our Options Academy, and taught middle school for 5 years and was the boys' varsity soccer coach. Left teaching for a couple of years while we had our first child, and it just, once that fire is lit of being an educator, it's hard to put out. And I just, being out in the business world, there's some parts I enjoyed about it, but at the same time, I just was missing something intrinsically. My cup wasn't being filled, so I got back into education and taught for a number of years.
What were your subjects?
I taught a little bit of everything. My first year, the only position that was open was the in-school suspension program.
So you became an ISP expert.
I did, and it helped me grow a lot. Connected me with some students that were really reaching out and needed some help. I'm a very relational type person. I like to stay positive, so I had a desire to go into a regular classroom setting with more interaction with a larger number of students, and I was a world geography teacher for a number of years. I also taught physical education, and then for 11 years of my career there, I went over to Union and was an English language learner teacher, or EL, what it's called now, all spurring out of the No Child Left Behind there in the early 2000s. That's when that really took off, and was connected to students from all around the world. I mean, literally all around the world, and they made a huge impact on me, and that from that point on, I knew, I was in the right place as far as education, and was an assistant principal at the high school there, and was athletic director, director of secondary ed, and then came back here as assistant superintendent, and just wanted to come back home. This is home to me.
So let's flash back for a second. When you were at Haskell,
Yes.
Who was your principal at the time?
It was Sally Tucker.
Sally
Yes,
Tucker.
For the first couple of years, and when I came back for 1 year, it was Phil Tucker.
Phil Tucker.
No relation at all.
How funny. He was a great guy.
He was.
A very good guy.
Both of them. I think of, if anybody remembers, Lonnie Chancellor, assistant principal back then, Catherine McGrew, just so many good people. I think that's why Broken Arrow has really stood out. They not only hire great educators, but good quality human beings that care about others, and they really took me under their wing my first couple years and helped me learn how to grow. And I look back at very fond memories because we were a tight faculty.
Well, and those names just live on forever.
They
Like
do.
you mentioned Phil Tucker, and you'll get 20 stories from 30 different people.
He was very influential, and I was always impressed that he could handle some of the most difficult, stressful situations and find humor in it. And it made some tough days. He can find positive.
He never lacked for laughing, that's for sure.
He was just a good man.
He was a good man. So, and now you're superintendent of schools, just complete full circle moment, student superintendent. How has that been for you this last semester? Just what's that feeling that's come over you?
It's almost surreal, to be honest with you. Just on a personal level, I wish my mom and dad were still living to see them, or to be able to tell them and talk with them about it, because I think they would really find great pleasure in that, because they love BA. And,
Class of 50 grads.
yes. And
absolutely.
They graduated, and then they made an intentional decision to stay here, and they lived in Broken Arrow. I grew up in Oakcrest Elementary, as I said, with the elementary school, but I actually lived in that addition too, right across the street. And
Is your childhood home still there?
Still there.
Interesting. You
yes.
ever thought about going and knocking on the door?
No, but I honestly, I have driven by there a couple times because it brings back so many good memories to me. It was a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house, and
we should just do it one day.
Yeah.
Just show up with a camera crew, knock on the door, and be like, "Hey, see what happens."
that would be interesting.
That'd be a great YouTube episode of
That
something
would-
right there.
My dad and I would walk over to Oakcrest to the playground area and throw the football or kick the soccer ball. I mean, just that neighborhood and that school was such a large part of my childhood memories when I think back.
Well, and how much that school has changed too.
It has.
I remember just the construction over the last decade there has been incredible.
That's it's still a great school, and Jana Williams, principal there, she does a great job making that a family. I think it's one of the keys of a great principal is when you walk in there, you get that kind of warm home feel to it, and she does a great job with that.
So just a personal question. On the corner there is the Jadon, Maine market. What did that used to be back in the day?
That was a grocery store.
Which one was it?
It was Weddell's is what I remember as a kid. It was, I guess, a family company. I don't think it was a company, but it was a family grocery store. Changed to Pickles somewhere along the way. And
you can still see traces of it when you walk in there. You kind of see old flooring and the signage. And
I can almost get that feel or vibe. I can close my eyes and almost be there.
Yeah.
And, made a million trips by bike, by foot, going over the grocery store, getting groceries. My mom would send me to get, gallon of milk or loaf of bread.
Because back then we ran errands.
That's right.
That's what you did. You just ran up the street.
And the Tasty Treat used to be original Tasty Freeze when I was a kid. And in the summertime, that was always a fun thing to do, is get a little money, and friends of mine in the neighborhood would walk over there and get a burger. And so it's great to see Steve still carrying that.
It's got that old school feel still to this day.
Still alive.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to finish on beyond what does it mean to be the superintendent, beyond personally. Again, it's just the people. I've got a great team around me. I feel a great weight and responsibility not to let people down. I want our staff, all the way from our custodians, child nutrition workers, to our teachers and principals, to be proud of being an employee of Broken Arrow Public Schools, and wanting to create a great culture that people want to come to and work at and make this part of their life, because we often spend more time at work than we do with our family. And
that's true.
So I want this to be a family feel here, and so I just feel a sense of responsibility to keep the name alive and a place that people want to be. And obviously, number one is take care of our kids and give them the best education that they can get in anywhere else in Oklahoma.
Well, that's another great segue you just created. Let's talk about careers at Broken Arrow, because right now, and this is statewide, I think this is nationwide, future educators and getting them to come and be a part of us. What can we do? What are some great selling points for people who are graduating or people looking to move districts to bring them here to Broken Arrow?
Lots of exciting things, and one I want to share in particular, but that we are entering a phase of education where we're going to see a great teacher shortage. We do not have the number of graduates going into that career field that we've had in the past, and we have to not make any excuses, and we have to find ways to still both recruit the best teachers and employees, but also to retain the best. One particular thing is I'm really excited about is a new child care facility we're opening up at Arrow Springs ECC, where employees will have the benefit of having some low-cost child care from, I believe it's birth to 3
years. Yeah, that's a game changer.
That is
for a lot of people,
and
that's kind of something unique around here, isn't it?
It is. I'm not sure how many districts are doing it, but we see this as a trend in the business sector. I know Senator Haste, state senator, has talked about that's an important thing of recruiting companies to Oklahoma, is to offer that, because cost of child care is astronomical. And
I don't want to think about it.
and teacher pay, putting those two together sometimes don't add up. So
right.
We are really excited to be opening that next year. We have a limited number of spots as we get that off the ground. But I think that's one thing that we're doing that's innovative and creative, and not just sitting back and hoping we get the best. Again, I'm going to go to teachers in the classroom for our students. But we're doing something purposeful. And then the bigger picture of all of it is culture. I always say that culture trumps strategy. I heard that long ago.
That's a great phrase.
And you can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't have great culture that people don't want to be here and feel a sense of calling to work here, then I don't think it's, people won't invest in it the way that we see now. And so want to continue to hire great people, that culture is important, that relationships are important, that we meet people, both our employees and our students, where they are at and help them grow. We've seen so many, coworkers over the years that you and I have worked together, and you've been here a while too. Now, how long?
16 years now.
16 years, and
it's crazy
we've seen
to think
a lot of people that have entered the district at some lower level positions, and now in some just brand new areas that their career has grown. So that's exciting to me. With 2,400 plus employees, we are the largest employer in the district.
I bet most people don't realize that we are the biggest one in Broken Arrow.
There's a lot to keep up with. We have a great HR department that oversees that and make sure that we're staying on top of things. But I really think culture and drawing those employees, and because a lot of times, a lot of positions, people they could go make more money elsewhere in the private sector, but they stay here because they feel that it's where they're supposed to be and want to continue to do that.
So if anybody's interested in that, baschools.org/careers is the place to go.
Come on.
Yes, we want you. Bring it on. So let's go through some cool little bullet points, if you will, over the last year of accomplishments. And some of these are academic, some of these are activities, fine arts, and just kind of reflect on them. First off, right off the bat, 9 National Merit semifinalists and then 6 National Merit finalists. Amazing.
It is, and that's a testament. What's cool about that is a K through 12 accomplishment. The high school gets a lot of credit for that and gets a lot of attention for that because that's where the students are recognized. But that's been years of hard work by our teaching staff to provide a pathway for those students to really excel. The time and commitment to reach that academic level is almost overwhelming to look at. Those are students, when they get up and speak, the poise and how articulate they are just really amazes me.
Me too.
And how well-rounded they are as just people. We think of them as maybe just being, very highly academic in some small areas, but when you start talking to these students, you realize they are very well-rounded and socially very sharp too, that they I think will be so successful in their careers, whatever they choose to do, because they're not only intelligent but also very relationship driven too.
Every time I see them speak, I want to be like, we need to recruit them. We need them to come back into the fold.
Incredible. And they've just credit to our teachers, credit to those family members that have raised those students, because they get a lot of credit, and then most importantly the students, because it is not easy.
No, and did they change the dynamics of the National Merit Program a couple of years ago?
They did. It is harder to achieve than
That's
it
what
was
I heard.
years, and it's a very, very minute percentage that achieve that level. And what's so cool is all the scholarship opportunities that will flow their way once they receive that designation. And from our understanding, we had many more right on the cusp, just a point or two away from reaching that designation also. So I want to keep focusing on that, because that is a good barometer of the academic level that we provide at BA. Those AP classes those students take are as challenging as you'll find anywhere in the nation.
I couldn't have done it when I was at their age. That's incredible.
It is. So kudos to all that were involved, and very proud of that number. We want to keep growing it.
Absolutely. So we're very involved in the community. Since we are the largest employer, we also have lots of connections. And one of the things we help out with in the district is the United Way campaign. And this year, we, as a district, raised $58,000 for the campaign, and we're named a Community Impact Award at the annual luncheon. That's got to be incredible, too, to have that impact across every board of like private business, industrial, educational.
It's very just makes your heart happy to hear that, because we are competing against some very large companies in the Tulsa area, and it just shows the quality of people we have. I know Larry Shackelford, our associate superintendent, was here several months ago, and you talked with him about the young lady who couldn't afford the ring for the
Pride Grand Nationals.
Yes, and how the student or the his workers in that department just started pulling out their wallets and handing over cash to make sure that she got that. And that's what's impressive about the United Way campaign. Again, there's so many people that could make so much more money in that private sector, but these are people that see a need in our community, and so much of it goes to Broken Arrow neighbors and so many local community outreaches, and they want to be a part of that, and they give, even though they don't have a lot of free money to give. And I'm just so thankful and humbled by it all.
Well, you're the king of segues today, because you mentioned Pride,
Yes.
and that was next on my list, the Grand National Championship, Pride of America, I should say Pride of America, Bands of America, the Pride of Broken Arrow, the 4th time they've taken Grand Nationals this year. Incredible.
It was, and I think that may be their new tagline, Pride of America.
I'm going to suggest it, see what they think. But I was talking to Dr. Dale, who's retiring at the end of this year with Fine Arts, and he said at Indianapolis and all these places, people will come up to the Pride kids like they are celebrities. Like, you're from Broken Arrow. Can I get a shirt? Can I get a hat? That's amazing to have that reputation on a national scale.
It is. I was down in Indianapolis to watch that, and the spectacle of it all, and people don't realize it's in the Indianapolis Colts NFL stadium, and half of that stadium is packed all the way to the rafters to watch these bands from all over the country perform, and to see BA, the highest score in
history, right?
History of that competition, and our kids are just incredibly, again, great musicians. They know that world of the technique of what it takes to be a great marching band, but again, they buy into they're representing something bigger than themselves. And when they go, that's talked about a lot, how respectful they are of other bands. And so I don't want to lose sight of what they accomplish, but it's cool to see them be recognized for just the young men and women they are. But for Mr. Davis, Dr. Pence, to achieve that year after year, that high level, it's nice to see them recognized for that award, for that title.
When you mentioned earlier about the National Merit kids being multifaceted, same thing can be said about the Pride kids, who are involved in multiple disciplines, probably all have part-time jobs on top of that, just such well-rounded students.
Absolutely, and I think that's so important. We work a lot with our local chamber of what we can be, training our young men and women to go out and go into the workforce. And they talk a lot about those soft skills, how important they are, that a lot of young men and women this generation are missing today. And to see our students excel in those areas makes me proud, because again, you can be very competent in an area, but if you can't collaborate, can't get along with others, work as a team to problem solve, you're not going to be successful in the new world out there. We hear a lot that 80% of the jobs that will be here 10 years from now have not even been created yet. You stop and think about that.
That's mind-blowing to think about.
So there are certain more than specific knowledge of one certain career sector. They are wanting our graduates to come out with those characteristics of they're problem solvers. They can work in a team together. They are very resilient, and they can persevere through some roadblocks or some failures. And that's kind of our goal as a district, to provide those type of graduates.
So we talked earlier about the community award from United Way of us giving back. We also have some organizations that give to us quite a bit, actually. One of them I want to talk about in particular, the Broken Arrow Public Schools Foundation. This year, they stepped up their game more than ever before. They always do teacher grants every year. They gave out $50,000 worth of teacher grants this year, where all our teachers apply, give an idea, write out summaries, and then they kind of sweepstakes show up at their school and surprise them, which is, you've been there. It's the greatest, coolest feeling in the world when they surprise them. But another thing they did this year, they kind of asked us for a wish list of things that what would you like that if you could dream to the sky, or blue sky dreaming, as they say in the Disney world. And they supplied enough funds to send every fifth grader in the district to BizTown through Junior Achievement. The foundation has just stepped up their game unbelievably this year.
They have, and I want to recognize, going back years and years ago to the original founders of the foundation that set out to provide some means of funding things that the school district couldn't afford to do. And those needs obviously change from year to year and decade to decade, but schools are changing. And I give a lot of credit to Frankie Catlett. He's a local manager of a Walmart here, who's the president, has been for several years, and he has really worked with the school district closely to align the foundation and make sure that it's meeting the needs of the school district and our teaching staff and our ultimately our students. So they've done some things outside of the box this year that is making a huge impact on our district, and we couldn't do things without him. So not only Mr. Catlett, but also his entire foundation board. We've got a great cross-section of community members in a variety of different, genres or career sectors that they're making a huge impact, and we want to continue that relationship. And that's a good way if you are looking for a tax-deductible donation, and that's a great place to give into.
BAPSfoundation.org for more information on that. I'm just full of websites today. I can just sling them at you.
Thank you.
Also, side note, Frankie is also a proud Pride of Broken Arrow dad. So he's involved in that too, which, doesn't surprise me in the least.
He's so vested, and that's it. What I love about Broken Arrow. One thing that when we were in the interview process for our head football coach, Josh Blankenship, he made a statement that I keep thinking about. He said, I've always been intrigued by BA because students that graduate here, they seem to, large number of them move back and their families stay here. And he said, that's always impressed me. And he said, I want to be a place that's part of that, where my kids are grounded somewhere and stay here. So it's when you start talking to people in the community, all the connections that they've had of where they have been as part of the school district or work there, or kids have gone through. It's just amazing. Blows my mind at times to hear all the stories.
I'd like to say it's not an accident.
It's not.
It's really not.
It's not.
So you talked about Josh, and this was his first full year of teaching, or not teaching. Well, I guess he's teaching, but football coach.
Yes.
So the athletics that has been going on this year too, just incredible athletics and all the accomplishments they've had this year.
They have, and it's Coach Blankenship has gone in and set a tone and a standard that I keep getting so much positive feedback from parents about how he is determined not only to lead a great football program, but also to build young men. And there's a certain standard of the way they should act and the way they go about their practice routine that he does not waver on. And that's one of the things that drew us to hiring him. Is it was not all about football. He saw himself as having a greater calling than just coaching football. It was to impact lives, and he's done a great job with that and led some major upsets. He took a football team that had to learn a new offense and new coaching staff, basically, that had some struggles early on, that turned around and had the huge upset at Owasso. Playing them in the quarterfinals, and just missed out on the shot by really one penalty flag of going on to the finals.
It's all it takes is one, isn't it? But you can't knock that first season with them. It's fantastic.
It's been great, and boys basketball program had a great run recently. Our girls basketball program under the direction of Shane Coffey, new coach this year. We knocked off, I think, the number 1, 2 teams in the state, maybe at the 6A and 5A level, somewhere in there, but had a lot of big upsets, and I see great things for the future with that program.
Well, currently right now, the soccer program, both boys and girls are doing fantastic.
They are. They play.
You have a little bit of connection to that, don't you? Just a little bit of investment?
Yes.
For those who don't know, Chuck helped lead them to a state championship last year.
Yeah, it was a great time. One of the best things I've ever been a part of in education in my career was being able to step in and help coach the last really 3 weeks of the season, and I learned so much from those young men, how they just never gave up and they did everything we asked, and hopefully that'll carry over into this year with Coach Smoker. With the boys program, they play tomorrow night, in fact, against Jinx, and then the girls play at home versus Bixby.
And these are some important games, correct?
Very important, yes. State quarterfinal, and you got to knock them off one at a time. And
I think they can do it.
They can. Our softball program's looking strong. Track, I think, has a great opportunity. Our golf program, so much going on. But again, just so everybody knows, we care about athletics and we're here to win, and we don't ever apologize for the will to win, because I think that teaches a lot of great things that, again, can carry over and make these young men and women better, husbands, wives, mothers down the road, better workers in their career, whatever they choose. So we teach that will to win, but we also are very cognizant and want to make sure that they're walking away as better people after they go through the program. So it's not always easy. It's tough at times, but fine arts, athletics, it's a commitment and a lot of time.
Well, as Tom Hanks said in A League of Their Own, it's the tough that makes it great.
I love it.
I think that's the coolest quote.
Love it.
Same thing can apply to fine arts and all the stuff that they do. I mean, the choir went to New York City this year and competed and the show choirs don't have national championships. This is kind of one of the first things that came around, and they just knocked it out of the park on that one. Our art show that we have every year for the district that showcase our student artists from across every grade level, not just the high school. Our fine arts is second to none.
It is, and I'm a big believer in the arts, and I feel like Broken Arrow for years has done the arts very well, and I think it's again part of that well-rounded student of them having exposure to some things they might not otherwise if it wasn't from this classroom setting. And it's hard to believe when you mention our show choir going to New York City and finishing runner-up to Burbank, California. You think little old Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, their choir program is competing against one of the big LA school districts, and nobody would think of Broken Arrow as an arts mecca.
But we want to be.
We want to be. And with the Christian Genoa Theater here and our PAC downtown and
our great faculty, the great kids they have coming through there.
Awesome. And, goes from orchestra to drama, all the visual arts, as you mentioned in the art show, just so many people to give credit to. And that art show, it's just amazing the talent that we have in Broken Arrow with our students. I mean, from our elementary schools up to the high school, it's amazing.
I see it. I think, are you sure this is a student who did this? It's pretty crazy.
Some of those sculptures that they did, it's impressive.
I don't want to show you the art I tried to make when I was their age. Teacher of the Year. We recently held our District Teacher of the Year festivities and named Kelsey Arnold from Rosewood Elementary as our Teacher of the Year for the district, and then Derek Younger from our Options Academy as our district support employers. We call it the Beyond and Above Award. How great is it to have those two people representing our school district on such a great level?
Well, when you read about their bios and their philosophy of teaching, and you hear about what they do in the classroom and the relationship they build with students, it's no surprise. And we've had a great history of Teacher of the Year candidates in Broken Arrow going on and winning the State Teacher of the Year award and being finalists even at that national level. And Miss Arnold, she has been in the classroom for a number of years in 2 different elementary sites, and I just hear over and over how much she cares for the kids. Like, the kids know it immediately when they walk in her classroom.
They can tell.
They
always
tell,
know.
Yes, and she just has that type of innate characteristic about her that you want to be in her classroom, and it goes back to that. Just feels like home. Mr. Younger is a security guard over at our Options Academy, and he could just fill that role as a security person.
He could sit there and hang out and say, "Don't do that."
He could, and
he doesn't.
He doesn't. He builds relationships with kids. I think they have a little guitar club that he has started that kids feel connected. And when you look at the big picture of that, when you talk about safety in schools, because that's the number one job, in my opinion. We obviously have to educate our students, but number one is we got to keep them safe. And all the research points to the safest schools have great relationships between their students and the adults in the building, and that they're constantly communicating, and where the students feel comfortable to approach adults and share things with them and alert them to things. And Mr. Younger doing that, he exemplifies that, and that's the type of people, again, we don't want to hire security guards that just sit around and look mean,
look menacingly, and make them fear and all that stuff.
That doesn't work with today's kids. You've got to build relationships, and they've got to have trust, and they got to feel like they can, have a mutual respect for one another. And he definitely deserves this award. And really, when you hear all the bios of all the candidates, there's so many deserving people, teachers and support people in BA, that just proud to be associated with them.
Yeah, I don't envy the committees that have to narrow those decisions down. There's just no good way to do it at all. Well, let's talk about next year as we look to, we're getting ready to wind down this year. But of course, people may not know that us at the administration building, we don't have summers. We work all summer to get the next year ready. So let's look at next year. What's going on? What's some cool things that we're getting ready to start talking about and launching?
Well, I hate to bring this up, but post-COVID, this year was almost a retraining in so many ways of having school again. So next year, I'm excited to start the year. I feel fresh and get back in the routine that we all know and expect, what school to look like. Stepping into this role at the end of December, I'm anxious to have a full school year ahead of me. As you'll see on Monday night's board meeting, you'll see a lot of new hires in the district and movement of principals and directors, and that is a time where the planning really starts after Monday night for so many of those sites and schools, and the vision for the district is set here in May for August. Hiring teachers is going to be a big job over the summer, recruiting those. I think that's a big thing. We've had 2 forums over this past week and a half about plans for the next middle school. Will it look like a 6th through 8th middle school like we've had in Broken Arrow for years and building a 6th one? Or are we looking at a different direction and outside of the box thinking for us of an 8th grade academy at Sequoia, and in having 4, 6th, and 7th grade academy schools below that step up into that 8th grade academy? We're weighing the pros and cons of that financially with the rising cost of construction that has limited us on some options. But again, I don't want to apologize for any of that or make excuses. We've got to take what resources we have and do what's best for kids. And my main thing is setting our 8th graders up to be the most successful they can be entering the high school transcripted years, and being equitable across all 5 middle schools is challenging at times to do that for our 8th graders. And we're just looking at some creative ways to address that, and also being good stewards of taxpayer money too. And so I would appreciate if anybody would go online, look at our YouTube channel, and or arrowvision.tv, and watch the session from the other night, and you'll see the whys behind it. I think that's important today. Is I want to be a superintendent that's transparent.
Well, none of these decisions are taken lightly.
They are.
They look at you guys have looked at every aspect: transportation, activities, construction, fiscal responsibility. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. It's not just a flip a coin, let's make this. And that's incredible to see that machine going.
And I hope parents feel that it's not just done on a whim, or it's not done for any personal reason of mine or any of my team
The Chuck
members.
Perry 8th grade academy.
It's done. We try to do at the end of the day what's best for students, and
100%.
And I like to get parent input, and that's why we have the forums. There's going to be a survey that goes out next week, and we would love people's feedback. We want to keep class sizes as low as possible. We've obviously got to constantly keep an eye on the growth of the district. You can't drive through Broken Arrow without looking somewhere of some homes popping up or neighborhood.
Every time I pass a corner, I'm like, well, that was a neighborhood. Wait, that wasn't yesterday. It's incredible.
It does. And we have a team that is constantly monitoring that and looking at our capacity at our buildings, and never want to be caught off guard or surprised by a growth in an area. So lots of stuff. Next year. And again, I want to get back to, just solid, that we're providing the best education in the state of Oklahoma, if not the nation. And, the things that I have told teachers when being in front of them is 90% of your job is building relationships with your students and being a good teacher of your content area. If we take care of those 2 things, that helps tremendously.
That's right.
And that's just the biggest impact to me. I do think we have to be aware of a lot of our students are facing some tough mental health issues like we've never seen before, and even students are sharing that with the adults in the building, and we're looking at ways to meet the needs of those students. I don't want to be naive to that too. And I think that's tied into that relationship point, and that teachers provide a setting where students can share if they're struggling in some areas, because the world is it's tough at times.
Yeah, it's not very kind sometimes.
Yeah, and we also care about our staff and the mental health of our staff too. We're living in some difficult times, but again, don't want to make excuses or be a victim. We want to find ways to meet those needs of anybody associated with Broken Arrow Public Schools.
When I think the pandemic shone a light on certain spots that, okay, this is what we need to do.
Absolutely.
So as crazy and dire that whole situation is, it also exposed, I'm like, all right, let's get to work on this.
Absolutely.
So something good did come out of something insane, and we can handle that.
Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up this podcast, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with today?
I'm just thankful for the parents out there. I'm just thankful to be the superintendent of Broken Arrow Public Schools, and that you entrust me to provide your students a great education. It's humbling to me to be in that role, and I do want to listen and want to get your feedback that we do what's best for the district and best for our community. And kind of the way I finish all my little video segments I send out to staff. I always like to say the best is yet to come, because I do truly believe that if you have that mentality, on great days, you think things can get even better, and on tough days, things can get better. So that's my message to everyone. The best is still yet to come for Broken Arrow Public Schools.
Well, thank you, Chuck Perry, Superintendent of Schools, for being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Enjoyed it.
I know our listeners appreciate it too. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into Core Values, an official podcast of Broken Arrow Public Schools, and we will see you next time.